At this time, I'd like to recognize a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, one of the strongest voices on national security in the body, a new member, but somebody who really understands the world and a tremendous supporter of the U.S.-Israel relationship, Senator Marco Rubio from Florida, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Senator Graham, and I appreciate this, and I rise here in support of these sanctions as well. Americans are perhaps tempted these days to take a step back from the problems of places like the Middle East and wonder, why do we need to be active in resolving these thorny issues that often seem unsolvable? But yesterday in the Foreign Relations Committee, for example, we discussed Syria legislation and debated how to address the growing repercussions of our policy and action as violence and instability spread beyond Syria's borders. But we can't just stand idly by and ignore the fallout from Syria. Americans need to remember that Iran is not just Israel's problem, it's ours as well. Iran has been sponsoring terrorism and killing Americans for decades, most recently in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. Iran has pursued an anti-American agenda. In its foreign policy, it's supported tyrants, it's undermined U.S. allies, and not just in the Middle East, and through its terrorist proxies like Hezbollah, and what they're doing now to defend Assad in Syria, but they've even done it in our own hemisphere. And on top of these issues, Iranian leaders have denied that the Holocaust even happened, and they've threatened Israel's very existence. So we do need to strengthen our sanctions, and we need to actually follow through with them. And that's what this resolution calls on the administration to do. But we also have to ensure that our international partners do that as well. And so I'm pleased that this resolution calls on the administration to fully implement the sanctions that we've already passed and approved of. But these sanctions have not changed Iran's calculus. So sanctions alone are not enough, because as we've seen, Iran has added centrifuges, they continue to enrich uranium, and they get closer to their nuclear capability. Similarly, the approach of this administration to talk of Iran trying what our European partners have attempted to do in the past has also been unsuccessful. For more than 10 years now, we and the Europeans have tried to negotiate, all with no results, and Iran has only gotten closer and closer to a nuclear capability. So we need a new approach. One avenue that has not been adequately explored is using perhaps our greatest weapon, what Ronald Reagan called the will and the moral courage of free men and women. And this means speaking out more forcefully about human rights situation in Iran. This regime is a brutally repressive one. It represses its own people. You should read the 2012 State Department report. It talks about disappearances, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment, including judicially sanctioned amputations and flogging, politically motivated violence and repression, such as beatings and rape, harsh, life-threatening conditions in detention and prison facilities. This is not even a comprehensive list of the abuses that exist in Iran. There's currently an American pastor in Iran, Saeed Abedini, who is serving 8 years in prison because he's a Christian and practices Christianity. Just yesterday, the Iranian government disqualified 2 presidential candidates. It's a sham election that's coming up in the coming months here. And so, as one State Department official put it to the Foreign Relations Committee, the green movement in Iran today is virtually non-existent. And that's because instead of denigrating the freedom fighters in Iran who have suffered from inaction and lack of support, we need to be doing everything possible in the weeks to come to speak frankly about the lack of fundamental freedoms in Iran and reject the notion that this regime is legitimate or a credible negotiating partner. We need to make clear that a crackdown against the Iranian people, similar to the one that occurred in June of 2009, after a fraudulent presidential election, will have real consequences this time. We can't be everywhere, America can't be everywhere and do everything, but we can't outsource the solutions to all our problems either. Now, Israel faces an unprecedented security environment. I saw this firsthand during my recent visit to the Middle East in February. In every direction, what Israel sees is uncertainty and potential instability, from all-out civil war on the northern border in Syria to neighbors going through delicate political transitions in the wake of the Arab Spring. But even with all these changes in its neighborhood, the greatest challenge facing Israel today is the threat of a nuclear Iran, and we need to stand with Israel and provide diplomatic, military, and economic support in its defense of its territory, its people, and its existence. And we need to remind Tehran that the United States will not allow Iran to obtain nuclear weapons, as this resolution states, and that's why I'm supporting it, and I urge all my colleagues to support it as well. Thank you.